Story 1. Overall, I love being married. The thing I probably miss the most is that when I was single, I cleaned the house and it stayed clean. Now, it stays clean for about 5 minutes. Story 2. Deal with extended family members that I strongly dislike and do not get along with. Worse is having to help them or get involved in their problems. Story 3. Not having any completely private space. I lived alone before I met my husband, and I still miss the feeling of closing the front door and knowing I had every room to myself. Story 4. I love my wife. She is complimentary to me in many ways and was the first person I met who made me feel like I could be myself. She also hogs the covers, leaves lights on, and cannot seem to close any drawers she opens. Story 5. When my wife sits down in the living room, sees what I am watching, and says, "Can we watch something we both want to watch?" This means she wants me to put on Friends on Netflix for the millionth time so she can ignore it and stare at her phone. She does not like when I point out that she can stare at her phone while I watch what I want to watch. Story 6. Having to compromise on the thermostat settings constantly. Story 7. I'm pretty minimal when it comes to possessions. I do not like to have a lot of stuff that I have to organize and keep track of. Being married, though, and having children means living in a house with so much stuff. I also think it is a lot easier to manage money by myself, as I can get by on relatively little. Story 8. Accountability to another person, not just yourself. Responsibilities. Story 9. I think knowing my husband will die makes me very sad, and I cannot imagine living without him. I want us to grow old together and live as long as possible. But the thought that it will come to an end makes me wish I had never met him because I will not be able to handle the heartbreak of losing someone I love so much. Story 10. Having to consult with another person before I take action. Story 11. Having to run things by someone else, even if they are small and only impact me, is frustrating. Having to hear opinions about the behavioral changes I decide to make is tiring. If I decide to limit my red meat consumption as a single person, I can just do it without having to justify it. I don't have to endure someone's argument about how that is unnecessary, unhealthy, or burdensome. If I later decide to change my mind, I don't have to listen to someone's "told you so." As a single person, I am free to be as dynamic as I want. I can ditch a lifestyle and adopt another without worrying about someone's feelings. Story 12. No matter how well you think you know someone, or for however long, one day you can wake up and find out they are not the person you thought they were. Story 13. I love my husband, and my life is exponentially better with him. But good God, that man's farts are awful. I sleep with a can of air freshener by the bed. We eat the same thing. What is going on? Story 14. Losing hobbies or interests because your spouse does not like them. I see many people stop doing things they used to love because their spouse does not like or have interest in them. My friend used to like action movies, but his now wife does not. Time and time again, I have witnessed him say, "I want to watch that new action movie." And she responds, "No, we are not watching that." Sometimes I wonder why people get married when they have basically nothing in common. Story 15. The complexity. If I were single, I would have an efficiency apartment in a low-income neighborhood with minimal furniture and a mini fridge. I would go to work and then go home, maybe meet with family every few weeks, but that would be about it. I would not give up anything about my life with my partner, but sometimes it feels like it might be nice for things to just be simpler. Story 16. I am used to leaving a room when I feel people are talking too much. Story 17. Nothing. I love it. If I had to pick the absolute worst thing, it would be that she wants to tag along when I need to go somewhere just to pick up a couple of things for a project. And a 10-minute trip turns into an hour because she starts looking around when I want to be in and out. Story 18. As someone with a wife and a baby, I sometimes miss all my free time to play video games, make music, and have alone time. Story 19. After people get married, they stop doing the things that made them attractive in the first place. Singing little songs while she works, looking up fun places to visit, or finding new things to try. There is a day and night difference between married couples who still try to keep the romance alive and those who say, "I don't care. They won't divorce me." Treat your married significant other as if you were still dating. Stay in shape. Maintain curiosity. Continue trying to impress and show affection. Story 20. The fear that she will leave me one day despite giving her all my love and effort. Story 21. To be honest, I think the bigger change was going from a childless married couple to new parents. That is a loss of solitude at a level that I cannot fairly compare to anything else, including going from single life to married life. Do I miss some aspects of being alone in my apartment when I was single? Sure, but the house is big enough. I love my spouse, and we survived a pandemic together in a tiny condominium. As a new parent, though, I miss being able to do what I wanted for an entire Saturday afternoon without having any boundaries of activities, expectations of time frame to return, exchange of timeshare bargaining for a later time, or drawing some social debt to repay for babysitting coverage. Making time for myself as a new parent is like a debit and credit system of my time. If I want to do anything, I have to draw credit from my spouse and the grandparents and repay that favor at a later time. There is no my time. It is no one's fault either, not my child's, not my spouse's, not anybody's. It is just the sacrifice of self that comes with becoming a parent. Story 22. Having to worry about whether someone else is taken care of and having a good time. Maybe because I am not used to a partner really taking care of me ever, but I am exhausted from years of people-pleasing and being taken for granted. Story 23. Everyone says that once you get married, the sexual activity stops, so I may as well just stay single and continue to abstain from sexual activity. Story 24. I don't want to be single, but sometimes I want to be in a sad, bad, or quiet mood for a while without my significant other thinking it is because of them. You know, when you just want to sit with some selfish, childish, or miserable thoughts on your own for a while until they pass, but you are pressured to share them, then you feel mean, unpleasant, and pathetic. Story 25. Uneven household chore distribution. The home I was raised in had no assigned chores. If the sink had dishes, you just grabbed a sponge and got to work. My brothers and sisters all had a mutual understanding with unspoken rules. My wife came from a family that screamed and fought over who had to do what, with the ultimate goal of doing nothing at all. It took 5 years for her to do housework without explicitly being asked or fighting about it. Story 26. Weaponized incompetence. I lived with an ex-boyfriend for a few months and it was torture. I worked 2 jobs with more hours than him, and I would come to him about the stains in the toilet. Sigh. Story 27. Knowing that one day one of us will have our heart shattered when the other dies, and our love story will be no more. We will not know how to pick up the pieces and will soon follow the other in death, leaving our children to mourn both parents. Story 28. I just do not want to waste another year with someone who will inevitably begin to hate me. Story 29. The thought of having to adjust and compromise on personal habits is stressful. Story 30. The thought of dealing with a partner's issues and conflicts is less appealing. Story 31. Walking on eggshells. Happily divorced now and life is great. Story 32. I always thought it would be joyless and rare sex. Boy oh boy was I wrong. Happily married. Story 33. Depends on who I am married to. It seems a lot of people marry someone with the intention of starting a family, but more or less just find someone they can tolerate enough to have that. I, on the other hand, would only marry someone I really loved and liked spending time with. If I do not find that, then I would not get married. Story 34. The part about having another person living in your house. Story 35. I have no closet space, like zero. She has taken it all. She says she will make room for my shirts, but they just get crammed in the back. We have a wall closet and a small walk-in closet in our bedroom, and she has filled them both. I am over it now. I have adapted. I hang my shirts on my dresser and use a combination of a laundry basket and the floor for the rest. Story 36. The thought that 20 years from now she could completely change, and we might get divorced and have to split everything. Story 37. Work in retail and sales. The number of people who say they need to ask their significant other before making a purchase makes me never want to date again. Story 38. When she rewatches Grey's Anatomy, I also have no new shows to watch. 3 more episodes and I am going to start begrudgingly hate liking it a little. Story 39. I had a very long and detailed response to this, However, I will keep it short instead. The aspect that makes me want to remain single is that no matter how amazing the marriage is or was, a person will change. Unfortunately, that change can easily lead to incompatibility, a relationship-breaking incompatibility. This is coming from two such divorces. I will not allow myself to be placed in that situation ever again. Story 40. Instead of life partners, I see too many married couples become captive roommates. Story 41. I like how this is meant for single people, but all the married people are complaining about their marriages. Story 42. Never doing anything right in her eyes, and if I were to do it her way, the script would be flipped and I would be wrong again. Story 43. Getting caught up in relationship issues, while in reality they do not even matter. For example, you get into a disagreement with your spouse about which way to load the dishwasher. Things escalate and you end up sleeping on the couch without much rest. You have to go to work feeling terrible. The next day, you return to the argument, rehash things, try to smooth things over, and take the time and effort to do all that. You spend all this time and energy over something insignificant. This is what is taking your mental energy and time. This is your focus in life right now. This is your world right now. Meanwhile, if you were single, you would not be dealing with this kind of issue. It is just unnecessary conflict at the end of the day. You would be going about your day focusing on real issues, not made-up conflicts between you and your partner. This really makes me want to continue staying single. Story 44. Sometimes I feel like married couples just put up with each other after a while. They pretty much cannot stand each other. Story 45. With my husband, none. I'm much happier with him. Part of why I knew he was right for me was I didn't need regular breaks from him. He knows when to be quiet and appreciates silence. If I need quiet, especially early in the morning, he respects that. We are a team in as many ways as we can be. He respects me, my decisions, my mind, my choices, and my autonomy. With my exes, though, where do I start? Mostly all the sexist crap and self-effacing gender role nonsense I put up with for way too long. Being expected to be my partner's willing house and sex slave, personal accountant, therapist, crisis manager, event planner and manager, personal chef so he wouldn't eat poorly, cheerleader, unpaid private tutor, and laundress. Some exes expected me to be okay with letting them make my life choices just because they had a penis, including my reproductive decisions. Some expected me to let them choose my relationships, including friendships with other men. Some didn't even do their own laundry. In summary, none of these issues with the right partner. Everything with the wrong one. Story 46. In that region, 40 to 50% of first marriages end in divorce. I have zero interest in a 50-50 chance of giving away half my assets to anyone. The situation is even worse for second and third marriages. Story 47. Listening to him talk about work. He is a mainframe programmer. Story 48. 1. Not having the time, energy, or money to engage with my hobbies or personal development. 2. Having to do twice the housework that I had to do when I was single. 3. Having to clean up after my wife's messes. 4. Not knowing if I will be able to relax or mentally and emotionally recharge when I am at home. 5. Not knowing which version of my wife I will come home to after work. 6. Honey-do lists. 7. Dealing with noise fatigue from my kids fussing and my wife, as she is very loud when she talks. 8. I miss being able to sleep in whenever I want to. 9. I miss only having to take care of my own emotional well-being. 10. Being able to do whatever I want without worrying if I will be in trouble for it. I love my wife and kids dearly, but they are exhausting. Story 49. A lot of these comments could be resolved with good communication. Not complaining or passive aggressiveness, but a good mature adult conversation. Stop suppressing your feelings, gentlemen, and just talk to your wives. I know this because I used to do this a lot. Story 50. The endless battle over how to properly load the dishwasher. Story 51. Drama about the most trivial things. Passive-aggressive behavior. Unreasonable expectations. Double standards. Story 52. I see how much money it costs. I am broke. Even if someone were interested in me and I in them, I would only want to marry if or when I can be financially stable. That is not in the cards for the foreseeable future. Story 53. Being financially dependent on someone can be challenging. Additionally, divorce can be costly. Story 54. The fact that I am married and have not had sexual intercourse in 2 years is not a selling point. Story 55. I am married. I love being married and love my family. However, I dislike the lack of autonomy I have. My spouse was out of town for work the other night. The children were in bed, and I had the best alone time. I was able to do yoga, eat snacks, draw, and watch whatever I wanted on television without the constant awareness that I might be interrupted at any moment. I miss true alone time. Story 56. Incompatible sexual desires are an absolutely brutal cause of marriage breakdown. Story 57. Marriage looks great. Divorce looks horrible, both financially and emotionally ruinous. Everyone in my family has been divorced. 40 to 70% of first and second marriages end in divorce. I am pretty happy alone, just dating or in a long-term relationship. That is good enough. Story 58. It's not about married life. It's about the stress of the wedding, the ring, the honeymoon, and the possibility of disengagement when I ask for a prenuptial agreement. Story 59. The entire concept of having to compromise over everything every day forever is exhausting. I just want to come home and relax. It is tiring to be out in the world constantly worrying about other people's needs, feelings, and wants. I cannot imagine coming home and still having to do that. I cannot imagine not having hours every day when I do not have to talk to anyone, and nobody asks anything of me. Not being able to set something down and have it be there when I return. Having to justify to someone why I want the house at 60 degrees and why I am wearing a hoodie in August. Story 60. You cannot be lied to, betrayed, assaulted, or hurt by a spouse if you are single. Story 61. The fact that I am getting close to 40 and the vast majority of marriages I have encountered throughout my life have seemed toxic and unhappy. Even the ones that do not seem that bad have never made me feel like it is something I need. I am still not completely opposed. If I meet the right person, cool, and if I do not, that is also cool. Story 62. Never being able to only worry about myself. Everything is about us and ours. What are we having for dinner? What can we do with our money, knowing that every expense and cost is basically doubled because we are doing it together? I love my wife with all my heart, and I do not want to be without her. I miss her when she is gone. But I would be lying if I said a small part of me does not feel a sigh of relief whenever she goes on a trip or stays at her parents' place for the week, because it means I only have to worry about myself and what I want during that time. Story 63. 1. People change. Legal bindings stay the same. 2. It is my firm belief that a majority of people on this planet do not have the proper psychological or emotional mechanisms in place to have healthy, long-lasting relationships with others. It takes self-awareness, theory of mind, humility, hard work, empathy, and many other qualities. People are lacking in the emotional and psychological departments of their brains. Sometimes this is obvious in your partner or potential partner. Sometimes it takes years to find out. That is scary. Some people are fine with that or do not mind having relationships where they argue all the time, have insecure issues constantly, mismatched and stressed love lives, or ongoing communication problems. I cannot settle for that. I am not willing to settle for a toxic relationship. I would rather be single. 3. I have zero interest in anything but a serious relationship, but finding the right person is exhausting. 4. I do not want drama. I do not want my holidays, a time of joy and celebration, to turn into a chore where I have to put up with in-laws I do not get along with. I am not getting involved with anyone whose family does not get along with my own. Finding a person who meets all these criteria seems unlikely. I have tried a handful of times, had something real a couple of times. It just does not work out. People change, or worse, they show you who they really are. Story 64. Pretty much all of it. Was married 31 years. Murderers get less time. Story 65. I am probably the asshole. I married my wife, my high school sweetheart, because she is amazing. She loves going out, always finds time for me, but stays independent and has a stable job. There are many other reasons too. I do love her. We got married after 6 years of knowing each other and finally got a place of our own. Even had a couple of kids. The thing is, and why I'm probably an asshole, is that she has never grown up past the point I met her. I have changed jobs 7 times trying to get better pay and stable hours, and she is still doing the same minimum wage job she started after leaving school. We constantly talk about the condition. The house is in and both agree on each other's tasks at home. The kitchen is my job and it is clean every day, but I come home and trip over toys, etc. because it is 11 p.m. and nothing is done, including 3 sides and a sink full of washing up. But that is my job, so I get on with it. So what? Well, I am autistic. Changing jobs is hard for me, let alone any that pays well. She is normal. At least that is what she believes, and refuses point blank to even try to use her qualifications. We could be earning so much more if she used them. We talk about the house, and the next day it is tidy. It turns out my mother-in-law comes over and spends more than 4 hours cleaning the house. My wife does nothing besides make tea, which is standing in my clean kitchen. Nothing I do can persuade her to want any change. I have tried being nice, have tried a star chart, and even told her point blank that I think she is autistic like me and told her how much a diagnosis would help her understand her actions. What does she do with any of this? Nothing at all. The next day is the same routine, as if I had not poured my heart out crying for her to do anything besides the same routine she has done for 15 years. Story 66. The number of people in the comments section who do not understand the simple question the original poster asked is disturbing. Story 67. What do you want for dinner? Insert desired food here. I do not want that. Story 68. Having been married before, what I really do not look forward to about the prospect of doing it again is how much of an ordeal it was to undo. I had a nearly ideal divorce. No alimony, no children, no real drama, not even lengthy discussions about who gets what. I shudder to think about what someone with all of that involved would have to endure. I am not against being married again, and with my current partner, I like to think it is a real possibility provided she agrees to a prenuptial agreement. Story 69. I did not like having to go to a family event every other weekend. I do not like people in my house. Story 70. Women generally have less free time when married with children. One study found that when a woman marries and there are no children, she spends an extra 7 hours a week doing household management. I really miss my free time. Story 71. The marriage is hard work part everyone is talking about. I rather have easy love. Like with my friends, we have decades-old friendships and solve problems easily. Apparently, that is not possible with romantic love, at least not for me. Story 72. Having to live up to someone else's expectations as well as your own is difficult. I have been struggling with issues since before we got married, but now that they are out in the open, they affect another person. I don't even live up to my own expectations. He gets upset and frustrated when I don't complete my share of the housework. I am already upset with myself. I work full-time, and when I'm having a bad day because of my issues, I can't come home and clean. Piles up. Anything that affects me affects him. Anything bad that happens to me affects him. Whenever I make a mistake, it's not just me who deals with the consequences now. If I waited until I was a fixed and stable person, I would never get married. I want to clarify that I warned him thoroughly about my issues before we got married. I also want to clarify that I am working very hard on myself and have made measurable improvements. Story 73. The average $31,000 wedding and the 50% chance you will get divorced at the 5-year mark and lose everything you have. Story 74. Trying and failing to find a balance in the shared household work. If I ask her to do a chore, is it because I am tired and need help? Or is it because I just do not want to? Where is the boundary between selflessness and servitude? Story 75. None of it. I am much happier with my partner in my life. Story 76. All of it. Sharing finances, putting up with difficult family members, inheriting debt, additional stress, someone expecting you to be physically and emotionally available at all times, being expected to be cheerful after you are extremely tired from working, arguing about how to decorate the house, having to compromise your entire existence for another person. Never. Story 77. Coming home from work after a long day and always having someone in my space. I get drained emotionally pretty easily and need some time alone to recuperate. I am afraid that if I get married, I will not have that anymore. Story 78. Watching how much TikTok has destroyed my wife's attention span. Laughing out loud. Story 79. The feeling of resentment about the unfair allocation of labor. Story 80. Just got out of a toxic relationship. I never felt like I was my own person or had my own choices. I am going to enjoy being able to plan my own activities again instead of having to ask my ex if they want to join. Story 81. I'm not single, but I miss having personal space to just be alone without it being an issue. Being selfish and being okay with that. Doing the secret single behaviors I did before without being interrupted. Going to the bathroom without feeling anxious about the smell. Taking a shower alone. Sleeping in until noon on weekends, not making my bed and just leaving it, having to do everyone's laundry, most of the cooking. Feeling alone while being in a relationship is pretty common too. Story 82. I wanted intimacy and had completely stopped in my marriage. Story 83. The entire divorce process that occurred at the end of my first and only marriage. Story 84. I love my wife deeply, but I constantly feel like I am giving more. I like to travel and we can afford to go wherever, but she worries about spending too much, so I said we would cut back. I like to visit family once a month and stay at a casino there. She hates casinos. Now I said we will not go anymore. If we do go, I have to pay for a hotel room at a regular hotel, where I used to get free rooms and food, essentially only spending money on the flight. Overall, I want to be able to do 100% of what I want. I definitely feel like it is a 75 to 25 split, maybe more. I give up a lot more. She worries about everything excessively. But again, I love her deeply. Story 85. Lack of independence. If I want to take a trip, go to a movie, or eat at a restaurant, I can just go. If I had a partner, I would feel obligated to include them and make changes or compromises to what I want to do. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.